This is Car Guys Talk with Andrew and Tavarish.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the stuff that happened with my Lamborghini.
Right.
So Matt recently came to my house and basically instructed me and helped me to get my Lamborghini dialed in. Okay? Now, we could have dialed it in a little more, but I wanted to use some stuff that was available to me, my old pads, and as some commenters have said, my ancient polisher. So I used a Porter cable, something or other, whatever.
Yeah, it has a weird, like it's 7424 or SX or something.
XP, yes.
It's so old that I can't remember what the model number was for that.
It might be 7424 XP.
Yeah.
Basically the Model T of detailing tools.
Okay, it's not the Model T. You know, there's no...
Yeah,
listen.
You're right. A Model T would have been like a cyclopolisher or, believe it or not, they have belt-driven polishers.
Belt-driven, yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And then you put that on your Rubenesque wife, and then
like-
she jiggles and loses weight.
It's very similar
in the
to that.
30s.
It's double, they're double handled. They have
yeah.
a big giant pad that rotates. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a single action belt-driven polisher.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't have one of those, but I had something that was it's a hand-me-down from an old detailing friend of mine, and we decided to do a detail on my car.
Yeah,
And-
use what you got in
Yeah.
a typical mechanic's garage. You
Sure.
know, a DIY mechanic's garage. What do you have? You have more than probably the doctor who has a set of screwdrivers, Black & Decker screwdrivers, but
Right.
you don't have state-of-the-art equipment.
Sure.
Could we do it and dial it in?
So I wanted to go over with you, since you're about the ultimate. What can you tell a person that wants to keep their car clean and maybe wants to take it to the next level, not necessarily spend their entire paycheck on something, but just something to have their car relatively maintenance free? Something not necessarily maintenance free, but just something where they can maintain it and it's going to look nice all the time.
It starts with washing, right? If you show up with a Brillo pad and you start grinding away on the paint, you're going to create some problems. And so you want to wash it properly. If you wash it properly, then hopefully you don't need to polish very often, right? So you don't need to go and do more advanced stuff.
Yeah.
And washing properly, to me, there's some simple things. Use 2 buckets.
Sure.
I have $350 set of buckets that everybody makes fun of me for. You could go to Home Depot and buy a couple of buckets for $10.
Okay, so maybe we should talk about what you just said. You have a set of buckets for $350. Now, why is that?
It's what it costs. You know?
I know.
We have a dolly, right? So the bucket goes in the dolly.
Right.
And then the dolly normally comes with a 2-inch cheap caster. I'm like, wow, this would be way better if we put a 3-inch, more sophisticated, a better caster. And
something
then,
that they would put on the space shuttle,
and
right?
then it would be nice if those 2 dollies were connected. So you have a plate.
Right.
And then, a normal bucket is 5 gallons. Well, 5 is just a little bit too little. We need a little bit more. 7 gallons too much, so we need a 6-gallon bucket.
Right.
And then rather than a 70 mil bucket like from Home Depot, I want a 90 mil bucket. It's a little more stout. Then you have a grit guard for the dirt to go under. And then I want a gamma seal, or I want to be able to put a lid on it. So I need the gamma seals.
Right.
And if we're going to do that, we might as well color code it.
Yeah.
And then because I like to keep all my wheel stuff together, let's create a wheel bucket. And then we got to label them, and we can't just put labels on them because the labels will peel off, and so we need to get vinyl wrap that you would use to wrap a car. Well, I have
I'm getting excited over these buckets right now. I'm like, there's a lot going into this thing.
I'll tell you, at one point, I ordered 27 buckets.
Yeah.
I just went every U.S. Plastics and Uline, every place I could figure out.
Right.
I bought them all. I laid them out in my garage, and I just figured out which one I liked the most. I pulled on them and stuck the grit guard in there, put it in the dolly. Which one do I like? And the problem is the best bucket, the one I like the most, is $20 a piece.
Right.
So you got 3 buckets, $60. You got the $50 dollies. You got the casters. You got the gamma seals.
So it's a
and it
whole
adds
system.
up.
It's not like you're selling just like a Home Depot bucket for $350.
Well, and that's the thing that gets me in trouble is people are
Right.
like, dude, you could buy a bucket for $10. I mean, I can do that. But if you actually went to the store and bought all this stuff, it would cost you $350.
So I had a conversation with my mom today because she saw a video of Ed Bolian's, and he was talking about the Bugatti Veyron that he wanted to buy, but he couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I was just watching that video today.
Yeah.
You got me all into it, and I started watching it.
Yeah. So the whole story with that, you guys can see that on my channel. But a Cliff's Notes of that is that a Veyron went into a lake by a really shady dude who was trying to have an insurance claim on the car, and he didn't know that he was being videoed. So then he went to jail for 10 months, but the car exchanged hands a few times, and then it got dismantled because they wanted to put it together. And now it's in a million pieces, and it's for sale for $300,000. And that is way below market price for a Bugatti Veyron of that year. So Bugatti Veyron would sell between like $700,000 to $900,000.
Would that be an unmolested, or what would an unmolested low mile vintage of
Well,
that?
first of all, there's no high mile Veyrons. They don't exist.
Well, I mean, low.
Let me get me a runner Veyron. How about that? Let's get me a driver. Like, no.
Could they run? Has anybody driven one 100,000 miles or 80,000 miles?
No.
Probably not.
No, I sincerely doubt any Veyron has ever gone like 50,000.
What's the service life on that car, on the W whatever 12?
16.
So it's a W16 quad turbo. The service life is you take it to the dealer. They basically hack the car into in half. They
Yeah.
take everything apart, and then in order to do an oil change, there's like 16 drain plugs, and you can do stuff yourself. Like, let's say you have like a big shop and you know a lot of stuff. You can definitely work on this car yourself. It's just going to be a pain in the butt. However,
so that's part of the contributor of why they aren't high mileage ones. Anyway,
right.
Get back on track.
So,
we'll be
just to make just accentuate your point about having things that on the surface don't look as expensive as they should be. I was explaining to my mom, who saw that video. She was like, "This car is $300,000. Like, why is it so expensive?" I'm like, "No, that's cheap for that car.
That's
like,
wrecked.
Yeah,
that's wrecked, dunked in 1,000 pieces.
That is completely like
destroyed.
Destroyed.
Right.
Yeah. I said when this car was new, it was around $2 million. Like with all the fees and all that stuff, $2 million. So, and she was like, "Is it made of gold?" I'm like,
"There's some gold in there."
I'm like, "Well, kinda." I mean, you got to think about, there's aerospace engineering in it. Everything is basically a one-off. I'm sure that they use some Volkswagen Audi Group parts and stuff.
I forgot where I heard it. I may have heard it on Top Gear or something. They were saying just the indicator stock on that thing is like a single piece of milled
magnesium.
And it's like 30 grand for the indicator stock.
Right. Yeah. So it's like they had to create their own species of pixies to make this this little thing. Right. Yeah, it's really. I told her, like, think of a handbag, like the nicest handbag you can get. And why is it that expensive? Why is a handbag $10,000 when you can go to get a handbag at any store for $5-10? It's because there's craftsmanship goes into it. It's because there's a level of detail that you're never going to see.
Some of them, yeah.
Some of them. But I'm saying
Louis Vuitton excluded.
Yeah. Paying for basically a sale material covered in plastic.
I am out of my depth. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. That's a conversation.
The Tesla store that I worked at was right next to Louis Vuitton, so I heard a bunch about Louis Vuitton when I worked at Tesla. That's all I know.
You guys ain't LV people. I'm not.
I'm more of a Coach
I have
guy.
no allegiance to any of these companies.
More of a
Matt
Coach.
Ferris speaks to that because his dad was, a Ralph Lauren guy.
Yeah.
So I've heard, him speaking to the cheapness of Louis Vuitton. Anyway, I get your point.
Yeah. But that's basically the point. So your buckets are the Veyron of buckets.
Yes.
Nobody will spend the amount of time that you spent on those buckets. And when people buy a $350 set of, it's not buckets, it's a system. It's a wash system.
It's a vetted, curated system.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's been tested, and I'm like, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would quite put it in that category, but it's the we use this analogy a lot. It's the Porsche 911
GT3 RS.
Yeah.
Of buckets.
Yeah, it's the Porsche variant.
Yeah.
It's been vetted. It's been tested. I've been using buckets since I can remember.
Yes.
And so I have a very expensive set of buckets, and those who value that and don't want to buy 20 buckets to figure out which is the right one.
Yeah.
And those that value, the testing, then they buy it.
But that goes throughout your line. Like you have everything in your website is just vetted by you personally. You've done lots of testing, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I started this whole sharing experience of just saying, here's what I use. Here's what I use in my garage. Here's the detail spray that I use. Here's the wax that I use. Here's the bucket that I use. And people have... I think a lot of it is a lot of people have trusted that or said, yeah, let me see if he's full of crap or not. And they went and bought it and they were like, oh, shoot, maybe he's right.
Yeah.
And so the stuff that I'm using it may or may not be the best in the world, but it's at least good. We at least know it works.
Of course.
And so nothing that I use doesn't work because I have bought stuff that hasn't worked and I've been doing this for a long time.
And you wouldn't promote that.
Right. And the funny thing is I really haven't promoted anything. It's just, hey, here's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing is like people think that I'm pitching. I'm like, which it comes across that way because I get so excited about this awesome stuff, but it's just, here's the stuff that I'm using. Here's why, and people buy it, and then those people get made fun of by other people for listening to buying something good. It's a weird dichotomy.
Isn't it weird
the internet,
how attached people get to their purchasing decisions? It's so crazy. Like, if you buy something and it doesn't turn out to set your world on fire, it's okay.
Right.
Like that's totally fine. Or if you buy something that you like but other people don't like, or you see somebody buy something that you don't like, that's okay too.
Like we were at dinner and we were talking about, or even last night, just razzing each other about car decisions.
Yeah.
Of course. You choose what you choose, I choose what I choose, and I think it comes down to self-awareness. If you're somewhat self-aware, you can be aware when you're being a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a full proponent of self-awareness when it comes to being ridiculous. I mean, have you heard my car?
Andrew has the most obnoxious car I've ever heard in my life, and he loves it.
Yep.